Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Leah Zickmund. I am the Executive Director here at Hourglass. I want to start by asking you to raise your hand if this is your first Hourglass Forum. Welcome. Whenever we have quite a few hands in the audience that are new, I like to make sure that I kind of tell you who we are as I go through my introduction, so I'll do my best with that. But just so you're aware, there are materials about the Hourglass. Our annual report is out there if you'd like to see what we were up to last year. My business card is out there if you'd like to connect individually, and membership information is out there as well if you'd like to become an Hourglass member after today's session. Today we are discussing the topic of immigration and how federal policies have and will impact the community in Lancaster County. Don't be afraid to come sit up front. That might be the last seats. Before we dive in today, maybe because of my background, I'd like to set the tone for this conversation. I recognize that this is a really mixed community with different ideologies, and it was a big topic. Immigration is a large topic among people of our community. It's a hot button issue that showed up in this last election. Here at the Hourglass, what our purpose is to be able to talk to you and present you with experts who can speak on a topic so that we have a well-informed community on different issues. So I invite you to engage thoughtfully today. I invite you to engage with empathy and walk away having learned something. Today we're hearing from 3 different experts who can kind of speak to different angles of the topic of immigration, specifically as it impacts Lancaster County residents. We'll hear from Valentina Ross, the Director of Church World Services Lancaster and Harrisburg, who will be able to provide updates on the state of welcome in Lancaster as it stands today. Many of you may have also attended the Church World Services State of Welcome Town Hall that was held here at the Ware Center just a couple of weeks ago. So she'll be kind of building on some of those updates. Dr. Kyle Kopko is currently the Executive Director of the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, which is the united voice for all of Pennsylvania's 67 counties. Dr. Kopko was also formerly the Executive Director of the Center for Rural Pennsylvania and a tenured Associate Professor of Political Science and Academic Dean at Elizabethtown College. And finally, we have Kat DeSantis, who is the Public Policy Manager at the Lancaster Chamber, which means that she advocates for policies that support business growth, workforce development, and overall quality of life in Lancaster County. Also of note is that Kat was recently appointed to Governor Josh Shapiro's Advisory Committee on Next Generation Engagement. I would love to offer a round of applause because this is a big accomplishment for her. So here's our run of show for today. I will ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. They'll come up to the podium and speak briefly about high-level updates as they pertain to their work. And then, in addition, we'll do some question and answer with questions that I have prepared. As always, we'll honor the last 15 minutes for audience questions as well. And before we dive in, I'd like to thank our forum sponsors, Rogers & Associates, the Ware Center for hosting us, Shoemaker for our live streaming services. We have quite a few people on live stream today, and Caleb Bornman for our event photography. Okay, so I will invite Valentina to come up to the podium and begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Leah, for having us here, and thank you all for attending this Hourglass Forum. I am Valentina Ross, Director of CWS in Lancaster and Pennsylvania. CWS is a global non-profit organization. We operate in the fields of hunger, poverty, displacement, and disaster. And here in the United States, we have a network of local offices whose work mainly revolves around refugee resettlement and migrant protections. The Lancaster office is one of the oldest in the network. We opened our doors in 1987, so we have been around for almost 40 years. And we have resettled thousands of people to this region during this time period. In 2021, we, in the Lancaster office, opened a sub-office in Harrisburg to expand our refugee resettlement operations. And together, during the last 4 years, we grew to employ over 150 staff. And just last fiscal year, we resettled over 1,100 refugees to this region, in addition to serving other immigrant groups. So quite a large office here. Our work is organized in 3 main areas, I would say. We offer welcome services to newly arrived folks. So welcome services help them get settled in their new community. So they include housing support, they include cultural orientation classes, we enroll the kids in school, etc. So we make sure that people who are just newly arrived receive all the services that they need to get settled. And then our integration services kick in. So we continue accompanying these folks for up to 5 years from their arrival to the United States. And we make sure that they get fully integrated in the community with an array of services that span from economic empowerment services, such as helping people find jobs, get ready for those jobs. We do ESL classes, we have career pathways assistance, etc. And we also have a health and family wellness program in our integration area that helps our most vulnerable clients with health navigation, intensive case management, and mental health support. And finally, our third area is our legal support area, legal program areas. We have a legal counseling program that is open to the whole immigrant community here in Lancaster and in Harrisburg. And we do legal screenings, consultations, applications for employment authorization documents, green cards, and whatnot. And we also offer legal representation, mainly to unaccompanied kids, but also to a handful of adults who are in removal proceedings. So what has happened this last year? Saying that these past 9 months have been challenging for our office, and especially for our client communities, is probably an understatement. Things have changed so fast that I doubt that I'm going to be able to give a general overview just in a few minutes. But I'm trying to do my best. So in the field of refugee resettlement, on January 20, the refugee resettlement program got indefinitely suspended by the new administration. And so thousands of folks who were overseas, they were in refugee camps, they were following due process. Yes, thank you. So they were in refugee camps, waiting for, and I think you can go, to the other one, okay. Waiting for a chance to come to the United States and be resettled. So many of these people already had flight tickets, and they even had family members here. They were told that they could no longer come. And at the same time, the administration froze all payments for refugee resettlement agencies, including for services that had already been rendered. So this put CWS in a big financial bind, and we had to furlough in one day 70% of our workforce nationwide. So you probably read it on the newspaper. Here in the area, it meant that in one day, we furloughed 110 folks across our 2 offices without pay. And yes, we've been able to bring back some of those individuals, some of those colleagues, but the majority of them were then subsequently laid off. And so right now, our office in Lancaster has a total staff that is 50% of our initial workforce at the beginning of the year, so 53 people. And in Harrisburg, we only have 10 staff. So CWS and 2 other resettlement agencies sued the administration, challenging the suspension of the refugee resettlement program. And the lawsuit is still ongoing. So, and in the meantime, since it began, a handful of individuals have been brought to the United States, including the plaintiff in the case, who was resettled with his family in North Carolina. but thousands and thousands of people are still waiting for a resolution and are still stranded overseas. A group of individuals who has been resettled during this past summer is Afrikaners. You have also read that on the newspaper. You know, Afrikaners are white South African nationals of Dutch descent. They claim persecution by their own government based on their race, and they have been able to resettle in the United States. So there have been thousands of applications so far. I understand that hundreds of them have been resettled so far. And a few individuals have even been resettled to Pennsylvania. But CWS Lancaster and CWS Harrisburg have not resettled any Afrikaners. And as a matter of fact, we requested to opt out from resettling Afrikaners. And so far, our request has been honored. So now we are at the beginning of a new fiscal year. We are in fiscal year 26. And so in fiscal year 26, at the end of last fiscal year, the president should have consulted with Congress and issued a presidential determination setting the new refugee admission limit ceiling for this fiscal year. But as far as I understand, this hasn't happened yet. And so we don't know how many, if any, people will be able to be resettled in the United States in fiscal year 26. Or which nationalities will be included in the presidential determination. We hope that the number will be above 0, but in the meantime, until we have a presidential determination, no refugees can be resettled in the country, and so no one is coming. So in addition to new folks coming here, there are also, you know, a lot of upheaval going on with folks who are already here. There are a lot of changes in immigration policy that happen very fast, and many of them are limiting people's ability to obtain legal status. Like, for instance, you know, asylum applications have become, you know, now have way stricter eligibility requirements, or application fees are higher. So this is all done, you know, in a way that really prevents a lot of people from obtaining asylum. And there are also, you know, groups of people who do have legal status. They came here with legal status, and they are seeing their legal status revoked. And I'm talking of over 1 million folks like humanitarian parolees or people on TPS. And these are people from countries like Afghanistan, Cuba, Venezuela, Syria. You know, these are people who fled their countries because they were unsafe, oftentimes because there was a dictatorial regime that they spoke against. And so they were really coming here looking for freedom and for safety. And now their status is being revoked. And they are also people that, since they were here legally, they were working and they were contributing. And with their loss of status, they also lost their ability to work in the community. And many of them have been laid off, and many of them now are in the community without a job. And I don't know how that is helpful to communities such as Lancaster. In terms of immigration enforcement, well, we all see it on TV, right? You know, it's, to say the least, the new tactics are quite controversial. We at CWS, we are also receiving the calls, right? You know, from people in the community who are being arrested, or family members who call us and say, hey, my uncle has been arrested. And these people disappear sometimes in, you know, in detention centers that are quite secretive, and we are really concerned about the conditions in which they are being held, and most of all, we are concerned about the fact that they are not allowed due process, right, in their cases. So many of them get detained, stay in detention, and then they get deported without ever seeing one day in court, without having access to legal representation. When they manage to reach you know, an immigration attorney, you know, the community has such limited capacity because there are so many cases now happening. And so we at CWS receive those calls, and our staff are always, their hearts break for these people, then they can't do that much to help them. But now, our effort is to beef up our legal program. We already have 21 staff there with, attorneys, accredited representatives, paralegals working, and now we are planning to hire an immigration attorney that will work on the legal defense of these folks. I want to say one last thing about the one big beautiful bill that passed Congress this past summer, and the impact that this is having on our communities. You may not know that one of the provisions in the bill eliminates access to welfare benefits, and I'm talking food stamps and Medicaid for several categories of immigrants who have legal status, such as refugees, right? I'm not talking about people without legal status. They've never had access to those benefits. But people with legal status now, they're seeing those benefits going away. The food stamps, the provision is already in place. My understanding is that states are taking a little bit of time to implement it fully, and so we expect to see a big increase in food insecurities among our families, the families that we support. For that reason, we are opening a food pantry on our premises, hoping to alleviate a little bit of that big problem. And we are hoping to have the food pantry open in mid-November, and we have a goal of serving about 100 individuals per week. This is where we are. It's as I said, a very eventful and very challenging year. I have to say that what I supported so far has been, being in a community that is really supportive of us, of our work, that, seeing hundreds of people calling us, people and also organizations, right, calling us and saying, how can we help? What can we do? And that moral support, knowing that we're not alone, that's been super important. And so we're there, we continue working as hard as we can. We know that it's just a drop in an ocean, but we are here, and we hope to continue to be here, until we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kyle Kopko, and I have the pleasure of serving as the new executive director of the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania. I just completed my second full month on the job, and I'm honored to be here today. This is my first Hourglass Forum, and Lancaster's home for me. So I'm a graduate of Solanco High School. My father was the chief of police down in Quarryville for a number of years, went to Elizabethtown College for undergrad. My mom's side of the family, they're Reams. They've been in the county since 1724. We were Chester County back then. So it's really great to have this opportunity. And I wanted to talk about immigration and specifically population change for my segment of the presentation. I know that might sound unusual, population change. It might not be something that counties have to deal with, but it really is. It makes up a strong component of where we're going as a community. It affects virtually every type of public policy you can conceive of, anything from economic development, tax-based issues, healthcare, transportation, so on and so forth. And so as I'm in this new role with the County Commissioners Association, it's also a topic I'm hoping that we collectively as a Commonwealth can help to figure out, because I'll start off with one little factoid. Since the pandemic, 41 states grew faster than Pennsylvania. I don't think any of us like that stat, right? That's probably not good news for us. We're going to be in this situation where we're going to continue to lose representation in Congress with every decennial census going forward. And this is really going to have an impact on our communities. And immigration and migration patterns in particular are going to have a pretty significant effect from place to place throughout the Commonwealth. So I'm a data guy. So I have a few slides here I wanted to present. And happy to make these available too for anyone who's interested. Some of this is based on my previous academic research and work at the Center for Rural Pennsylvania, but you can see this is Pennsylvania's population and forecasts going out through 2050. The Penn State Data Center helped to project out what Pennsylvania's population is going to look like by 2050. And you can see we're plateauing. We've had steady growth over time, but we're really in this period of stagnation right now. And that in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we need to take into account the composition of our population. And this is what the composition of our population, at least in terms of age cohorts, looked like in 2020. And you'll see where I'm going in terms of immigration and migration patterns here in just a little bit. So that biggest spike here, let's see if this, I didn't think there was a laser pointer, but this biggest cohort in Pennsylvania is the baby boomers. But then after the baby boomers, we don't have quite as many younger generations, particularly for the youngest generation. A lot of folks refer to that as Gen Alpha, but it hasn't been named yet by Pew Research. We used their age cohort categorizations. You can just see for the youngest age cohorts, there's a big drop off there. We just don't have as many young people in the pipeline, and that's going to affect our workforce, that's going to affect our tax base. Yes, there could be some opportunities for technological advancements and efficiencies and things like that, but we're going to be in a situation in Pennsylvania where we're simply going to have fewer people before long, if everything keeps going the way it is. This does not. This is a snapshot in time. The projections I showed previously, that's based on two criteria. One, natural population change, births and deaths, and artificial change, our best guesstimate of how people moving in and moving out of Pennsylvania, how those rates are going to change over the coming years. So it doesn't take into account any sort of policy interventions or any new industries that might get developed in a particular region. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We're going to look different in terms of our population in the future. Back to my earlier comment about how Pennsylvania has grown just post-pandemic, you can see some of the counties here in green that have experienced population increase, and those that are in white have had population decline just since the close of the pandemic. And this is all based on US Census data. It's estimates. It's not as robust as the decennial census, but still it's something to keep in mind. And what we're really starting to see is this east-west divide in the Commonwealth, where we're having more folks come into the eastern counties. And I'll be honest, a lot of this, because our birth rates are low. We need a fertility rate of 2.1 to have flat growth. We're at 1.65 in Pennsylvania. No state in the country hits that threshold. So this isn't exclusively a Pennsylvania phenomenon. Maybe what we're experiencing in Pennsylvania is more acute, but it's really part of a larger regional and national phenomenon. So the reason why a lot of these counties are growing is people moving in. Artificial change. And one of the reasons why the eastern counties are growing, they're geographically proximate to larger population centers like the New England area, New York, Philadelphia, Collier counties, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. You don't have that same type of geographic phenomenon in western Pennsylvania. And what's really been the crux of our growth that we've seen in Pennsylvania in the last few years? International migration. So if we look at this for international migration and domestic migration, folks that are born in the United States, folks who are not in the United States, if we break this down by rural and urban counties, based on population density, most of Pennsylvania is rural, as you might imagine. Rural counties saw net positive migration, both domestic and international. That wasn't the case for our urban counties, including Lancaster. I'll get to that in just a second. But you can see how this varies across all states. Pennsylvania was actually net negative overall in terms of domestic migration patterns. So more people born in the United States moved out of Pennsylvania than moved in since the close of the pandemic. But virtually every single state was net positive in terms of international migration. Now, if it weren't for international migration, again, in Pennsylvania, our population growth would have been net negative. Census Bureau, they're the ones that produce this information. They use a wide variety of data sources, visas, student data, some border crossing information. So they do the best job that they can, but it's important to keep that in mind. What does this look like at the county level? This is domestic migration. Again, we were net negative, but you can see any of these shaded counties had positive growth. Look at Lancaster. According to the Census Bureau, we were net negative in terms of domestic migration since the end of the pandemic. But let's look at international. Net positive, and look at Lancaster's numbers, over 7,000. So I think we need to understand these types of data and patterns. Again, this all comes from the US Census Bureau. What does this mean for the future of our communities? What does this mean as we prepare for the future? How do we understand why folks are coming to our communities, and how do we integrate them? Because I think we all understand the potential pitfalls of population decline. So if this is what we're experiencing now, what can we do to capitalize on that and make sure that we are the most competitive Commonwealth we can be? So thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kat DeSantis, and I'm honored to represent the Lancaster Chamber today as we discuss immigration policy and its impact on our workforce and regional economy. Thank you so much to Hourglass for including me in today's discussion. So to share a little bit about the Lancaster Chamber, we represent 1,300 businesses across Lancaster County, encompassing more than half of the county's workforce. Our membership spans every industry and every region of Lancaster County with a strong base of small businesses, and we operate as a 501c6 nonprofit organization. In my role as public policy manager, I have the privilege of serving as a bridge between business, government, and nonprofit, working at the local, state, and federal level to advance policies that support a thriving business community. So as you can imagine, in public policy, this year has been particularly challenging. For the first time since COVID, federal policy changes have had a direct and immediate local impact. The Lancaster Chamber is definitely feeling that as we consider one of our biggest policy priorities, which is workforce availability. So to put this into context, Lancaster County currently has one of the tightest labor markets in Pennsylvania. Our unemployment rate is just 2.4%, which is well below the state and national averages. And even though we have strong job growth, we face a significant and sustained worker shortage. In just one quarter this year, Lancaster lost nearly 6,000 workers from its labor force. And like Kyle shared, this is not a temporary thing. This is a result of changing population and demographic changes, which are anticipated for the long term. So at the same time that we have a worker shortage, businesses across every sector, from agriculture and manufacturing to healthcare, hospitality, construction, they're all ready to grow, but they can't find enough people to do the work. So that's why immigration for us is not a political issue, it's an economic imperative. This is a big part of our pro-business agenda, which you can see a little bit up here. We have modernizing the immigration system as a key part of our workforce strategy. So to share a little bit about where immigrants are working in our community, they are filling key sectors. Immigrants fill 9.2% of the tourism and hospitality industry, 8.2% of manufacturing, 6% of healthcare, 4.6% with finance, real estate, and we have over 1,600 immigrant entrepreneurs that are active in our region. We also know from the 2017 Census of Agriculture, so it's a little bit outdated now, but we know that there were 61,000 hired workers in PA agriculture, and about 8,000 of those were undocumented farm workers. We also know that 65% of employers said workforce was the top regional issue. So every year, the Lancaster Chamber does a membership survey. We ask our members what are the issues impacting them the greatest, and for the last 4 years, it has been workforce availability, recruitment, and retention. Just to share a little bit more, for every unemployed person in the county, there are 2.6 open jobs, and we hear constantly, anecdotally, and also in surveys that employers are ready to grow but do not have the workforce to do that. So what the Chamber does with this information is we advocate for a modern, efficient immigration system that meets today's workforce needs, supports business growth, and reflects the economic reality we're seeing right here in Lancaster County. So in practice, we advocate for two specific things: employment-based reform, that includes raising visa caps for seasonal, temporary, and high-skilled workers, streamlining visa processing and reducing backlogs, and fixing outdated systems that were set in 1990 that no longer reflect economic realities. And just a piece on that reducing backlogs, we talk regularly with businesses who face 5 to 7 years to get one employee through a visa process. So it's a very lengthy process, it's a very costly process. We just saw last week H-1B visas for high-skilled physicians, scientists, engineers went from about $2,000 cost to employers to $100,000. So it's just an incredibly costly and cumbersome process to get any international and global talent. The other part of our advocacy is around pathways to legalization and secure borders. So we believe in increasing resources at ports of entry, having clear and fair pathways to legal status or citizenship, and updating asylum laws for efficiency and fairness. This strategy has helped us kind of navigate the political landscape and make sure we actually are making progress. We have seen efforts already pay off. We, in 2016, received the Gateways for Growth program. It was through the American Immigration Council and the Welcoming America program. It gave us the foundation for to create a local immigrant integration plan. We received data on where are immigrants working in our community, what are their economic contributions. It allowed us to bring all of the partners together that are working in immigrant social services, as well as other key stakeholders in the community to really come up with our plan for how we're going to support immigrants. We also regularly do events where we inform and support employers in helping them understand what are fair hiring practices. We brought in attorneys and we did, kind of a seminar on immigration law and workforce resources. We've signed on to the U.S. Chamber's Liberty campaign, so there's a national campaign around immigration policy. Our position is completely in alignment with the U.S. Chamber, so this is not only local advocacy happening, but also on a national scale. And even just recently, we went together with the South Central PA Chambers of Commerce, so about 20 of us that represent a huge swath of Pennsylvania's workforce. We went down to Washington, D.C. and did some advocacy with our elected officials. So continuing to kind of hammer this issue as an economic imperative and as one that we need to support the business community. We really stay true to that mission. We're a pro-business, nonpartisan organization. Immigration is on our agenda because it is one of the clearest economic issues our business community faces. And by advocating for a modern, efficient immigration system, we're not only supporting local businesses, but we're investing in the future of our workforce and our community. Thank you.
All right. We're going to switch over to a couple of questions that I have for our panelists, and then, like I mentioned, at 12:45, we'll switch over to whatever questions you all have in the audience. I think just given time, I'll probably just go with one question per person. So I'll start with you, Valentina. I'd love to ask you, what would you like policymakers and thought leaders, considering we have several of them in the room today, to consider as legal immigration pathways are disappearing?
Yes. So I think that a lot of times we hear people say that people should just come here the right way, the legal way. They should follow process. I would like, I would like our representatives to keep in mind that those legal ways are incredibly limited even in the best of times. And if you look, for instance, at refugees, there are literally millions of refugees throughout the world, and it's just a tiny percentage of them that can get resettled when there is a resettlement program. So, and let alone all other pathways. I mean, there is no way for the majority of people to just place an application, wait for their turn and come here. There isn't that in the best of times. So I think that legal immigration pathways should consider that that is already a field that is, gives people very, very, very few opportunities to come here. And it's a pity because the United States, I'm European, so the United States have a relatively short history, but in this short history, they have become the strongest, most powerful country in the world. And they have done it by bringing people from all over the world here. This is a country made up of immigrants, the best of the world, or at least the most determined, right? They have come here and they have worked really hard to make this country a success. And continue bringing people is a real investment in the future of this country, to continue having a country that is successful and strong.
Thank you, Valentina. Kyle, as the Executive Director of Center for Rural PA, I'm curious if you were surprised that immigration became a focal point in the work to replenish rural communities.
It's a good question, and I think we have a lot of conceptions of what rural communities are like and how they think. And the best way I can put it, based on my time at the center, if you've seen one rural community, you've seen one rural community. They're incredibly diverse. And we're very regional as a Commonwealth. It's even hard to get folks across the Susquehanna River at times, let alone go to Western Pennsylvania or the Northern Tier or anything like that. But whenever you get into some of these towns, and Kat's point, talking with local chamber members and local elected officials, they've seen the change that's been happening in their communities. They've seen industry close up, and they realize, hey, we're having trouble even getting EMS providers, volunteer firefighters, just all these nuts and bolts of our local communities. And they realize, okay, we don't have a lot of young families anymore. That means that we necessarily need to bring people in. And it starts to click. Yeah, there's always going to be some resentment. There's always going to be some of those factions that are opposed to newcomers coming in, whether or not they're international or domestic. But it's slowly changing, and I think that we're starting to realize this, and even the Commonwealth is starting to realize this. Whenever I left the Center for Rural Pennsylvania, I was the chairman of a newly formed commission called the Pennsylvania Rural Population Revitalization Commission. It is the shortest title in all of state government. And it was formed for this very purpose of recognizing that we need to do something to attract and retain individuals, particularly in our rural communities, but all throughout Pennsylvania. So I think just by folks looking at the data and having a thoughtful conversation and just looking at it objectively, it gets a good conversation going.
Thanks, Kyle. Kat, I'm curious to talk a little bit further about the Chamber's original immigration strategic plan and what issues were included in that in trying to accomplish that plan.
Sure. So in 2015, the Lancaster Chamber applied for the Gateways for Growth program, which was through the American Immigration Council and Welcoming America. We worked in collaboration with with a really great cross-sector steering committee. We had funding from the Community Foundation, and our plan was really built to recognize and highlight the economic contributions of immigrants in Lancaster County. And so we had like 5 steps. I actually have a couple copies if anybody wants to look at it. I brought some. But basically it was all about how do we understand the contributions of immigrants in our community, and how do we continue to support them? And so it highlights different tools for language access, for belonging in the workplace, belonging in the communities. It fosters community cohesion and long-term retention. We know that if immigrants feel included in the workplace, and in the community, they're more likely to stay, invest, and contribute. It provides a data-informed framework for employers, for service providers, and policymakers to understand how immigration supports workforce needs. So it's a comprehensive plan. It was a practical plan, but it is outdated now. It's almost 10 years old. The data is it's definitely not reflective of our current state. And we are actually looking forward to reapplying for the grant to get updated economic data and really think about workforce recruitment and retention in a new way. And so we're going to be creating employer toolkits and entrepreneurship pipelines. We're going to be talking about credentialing and upskilling. So a lot of times it can be very hard for certification reciprocity. Immigrants come here, they were physicians, they were engineers, they come here and they start working as janitors or something else because we have a very challenging certification reciprocity system. And so it's really going to focus on how do we support employers and having immigrants in our, like to continue to show the impact that they make and the contributions they make, because like I said earlier, as we continue to face a workforce crisis, we can't afford to deny anyone's access to the workforce. We want to make sure that immigrants can be successful in our workplaces.
Thanks, Kat. If I can, we have a little bit more time. So Valentina, I'd love to ask you, today we've spoken a lot about the demographic and economic impacts of having immigrants in our community. I'd love to hear a bit more of you, because of where you work, on some of the less tangible contributions that you're seeing immigrants make in our community as well.
Yeah. So I mentioned before that we receive a lot of support from the community, right? You know, we have here in Lancaster, especially during the last years, we've seen a lot of people come in and say, I want to help you. What do you need? What we can do for you? And so Lancaster is a very welcoming community. We not because we're certified. We have people who really care, and this is in the fabric of the community. It's been like that for its whole history, and I do think that people here, they want and welcome immigrants partly out of compassion, because it's in their DNA to welcome the stranger, but also because they know that bringing people here makes the community better for all of us. And so we're talking about a cultural diversity that is so enriching that you wouldn't have. And in fact, Lancaster is different from other communities of the same size, in the same, more or less the same area. It resembles more, for the offerings that it has. It resembles a much larger place. Like we have such a diverse culinary scene, for instance, or cultural events in the city. It's really a more interesting place. And I do meet a lot of people in my line of work, and I know that sometimes the community tends to think of immigrants and refugees as a monolith, a block. They are all the same. They are a group, right? But they are not. They are people from all different countries. Everyone brings something different to the community. And I've met Afghan engineers, and I've met Syrian tailors, and I've met Cuban doctors. Every single one of them brings something, and so you can see really in Lancaster the whole world reflected here, and it's so cool, and I feel so lucky for that.
Thank you, Valentina. I'm going to turn it over to questions for the audience, and just 2 notes, I think, because we have 3 panelists here today. If you have a question that's specific to one of them, feel free to specify. And folks who are online, we're happy to also answer your questions as well, so I can come to those. Is that you with your hand up?
I'd like to ask all 3 this question. In your interactions with federal representatives and senators, have you gotten any kind of progress on making a revised plan for legal entry?
I'm happy to start since I was recently in Washington, D.C. The rhetoric we've been hearing pretty consistently is that once we secure the borders and ports of entry, then we can start to work on comprehensive immigration reform. We were interested in that conversation to learn what that looks like, because we've been touting that this border is secure, and we've had that accomplished. And so now, is it time to talk about immigration reform? The sentiment is that there is not a lot of strong political will at this point. We've talked a little bit about, can we do piecemeal immigration policy just to help address for asylum seekers or for the Afghan Adjustment Act or any singular piece of legislation, but it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of political will on either side of the aisle. The conversations we were having were just, unfortunately, not quite productive yet.
Thank you so much for presenting. Excuse me. Such an important issue, and we need to get it right here and across the country. So your feedback is critical for everyone to hear. Really appreciate that. I guess, Doctor, this question is for you. My name is Brian Davis. I'm on the board with Hourglass. And we at Hourglass and as a community, Lancaster, has put so much energy into housing. My spider senses just kind of went up. I think it was your slide 6 about the projected population growth of our country or our county. If that's accurate, all the work we've done on housing doesn't add up to me. As a commercial real estate broker, I do keep my eye on what's going on residentially, and there's such a shortage in housing supply. I mean, I have the numbers right here. For the month of August, the average home was on the market for only 23 days at a sales price of $365 and was 102.9% above asking price. So how could we be declining in population but have such a shortage of housing?
Lancaster's increasing in population. It's just the domestic migration has been negative, but international migration has been positive. So that's where we've seen the crux of the growth in Lancaster post-pandemic. Obviously, we do have some, more births in the county too as well. But Lancaster itself overall is growing. The other thing that's happening, particularly within the eastern part of Pennsylvania, is it's a little bit of a phenomenon here in Lancaster, but more so in the Pocono region, investment properties or folks who have second homes. There are some counties where 40% of their housing stock is seasonal. Just think about what that means for seasonal influx, and they're not a permanent part of the community. So you have those types of issues at play as well. But Lancaster is one of the counties in Pennsylvania that is growing.
So I understand clearly the slide that you showed is thank you. The slide that you showed is a projection of immigration, not population.
No. That was just actual raw numbers of immigration numbers since 2020. Domestic migration. That was on, yes, but that's for all of Pennsylvania. That's not for Lancaster County. That's the entire Commonwealth. Thank you. Sorry for that clarification.
I have a comment and then a question. My comment very quickly is to Kat. I was on a call with Representative Smucker yesterday, and he did say categorically, or uncategorically, that the border has now been secured. He said that. So perhaps we can start with him. And my question is, one of you, it was either Kyle or Kat, I think, said that in the recent quarter or a recent quarter, there's been a net negative loss of 6,000 immigrants or workforce. If you could speak to that, I'm curious if that's standard, common, and what might account for that. To me, that seems drastic. What accounts for that loss?
So it was 6,000 individual workers leaving Lancaster County's workforce. It was not dependent on immigrants versus any other one. It actually came from the EDC's quarterly economic insights report. So I would point you to Rayanne Miller, who can speak a little bit more to why that's the case. But we know that because of oftentimes people naturally leave the workforce and for different reasons, but we know that right now there's also a challenge with filling those spots or employers like backfilling positions because of a lot of fear and talent and inflation and everything else.
Is that a common rate of loss over a year? I mean, that seems like a lot to me.
I'm honestly not sure. I would definitely point you to Rayanne Miller at the EDC.
I have a question for you. Thank you all so much back here. Thank you for your presentations today. It's been really helpful. Kyle, you mentioned, we all know what the impacts might be as populations decline. Could you actually spell that out a little bit more for conversation? Paint a picture of what you think that might look like if we really do get to this point of decline in the state overall and
Sure.
in Lancaster. Thank you.
Sure, and we're seeing this in some parts of the Commonwealth already. I mean, just think of Western Pennsylvania, and, Pittsburgh collapse of steel, things like that. We have an aging population, aging housing stock, tax base is shrinking up. In Northwest Pennsylvania, I'm sure folks might know where Elk County is and Warren County, McKean County, places like that. Because of their population decline, they've not been able to sustain some healthcare services as they once did. For example, once the Penn Highlands Hospital in Elk County ended their maternity offerings, specifically labor and delivery, we now have a maternity desert in Northwest Pennsylvania the size of Connecticut. Sorry, I know this is bad news, and I get that reaction a lot whenever we start thinking about this. We obviously have a labor force shortage. We have trouble filling jobs. Yeah, that's the short-term effect. But what does it mean for a lot of our anchor institutions, if you will, going forward? This is also going to affect school districts. I mean, it might not affect communities the same way in eastern Pennsylvania just because of our population density already, but that labor shortage is going to be with us. But I'm really concerned in the northern tier, in the western part of Pennsylvania, how are you going to sustain school districts? And you can only consolidate school buildings so much. There's a lot of those very practical concerns, and they're really emotional concerns too. I mean, this is a big part of our identity as communities, and there's strong feelings all over the map because of this. And if we're not able to start thinking about this in a thoughtful manner, we're going to be in trouble as the entire Commonwealth because other states are growing. There's a number of projections showing that the country as a whole is supposed to grow by about 12% going out to 2050. We're just not keeping pace with that.
I have a quick question. I try and be neutral and look at both sides of issues, but this is one issue I really have difficulty understanding the other side and the motivation. And I'm curious, Kat, when you were talking about the Chamber is pro-business, pro-growth, and you're establishing and saying this is a problem going forward, as we all are saying that in this room. What are you seeing on the other side, aside from just saying the national side, locally and with people? How are they justifying this? How are they saying this is a path we have to be on? And based on what you're going to say, what can we do? Lancaster is a welcoming community, and the people in this room, we're going to be having conversations with people who strongly feel we're on the correct path. So this is to all three of you to answer. What recommendation because all three of you have given us different windows on what's going on from this perspective. I'm just failing to see the other side. So any recommendations?
I can share a little bit. This is I'll make some generalizations, which are generalizations, but we know from the other side that there is a sentiment around legal pathways and that people who are here perhaps not legally should be sent back, and we can bring people in, then we can replace them with people that come here legally. As I mentioned before, some of the challenges with that is that there are so many backlogs, it's very cumbersome, it can be hard to do that, but that is one of the solutions that I think we hear a little bit pitched from one side. In terms of what we can do, I think that the economic argument is a very strong one. I've heard a lot of examples from businesses. I want to actually share one that we heard quite recently from a local meat processing plant, that they were having a lot of lost productivity from their workers because they were getting pulled over on their drive to work. They lived together in a house, they would drive together in a van, and they were getting pulled over every other day to get checked for their legal documents, but it was starting to impact lost productivity at work, and a lot of fear, concern, the employer not knowing how to approach or how to support them. And unfortunately, in that scenario, there isn't a lot we can do other than continuing to empower and educate people on their rights and everything else. So in terms of what we can do, I would say continuing to advocate for the economic argument, continuing to uplift businesses who are experiencing this in hospitality, agriculture, manufacturing, everything else. But it definitely is, immigration is a federal issue. It's going to take comprehensive legislative reform to make a significant difference, and the political will on that, it's just a tough landscape because it's a losing issue for both sides. So nobody wants to deal with it.
I would say besides the economic, a lot of the times the concern is more emotional than rational, and I would say a lot of people do not know, and there is a fear of the other, of someone that is not known, speaks a different language, or speaks with an accent, or has a different way of getting, wearing clothes, or etc. And I think that it is important for people to get to know each other, because when you know someone, that sense of fears gets dissipated a little bit, and you don't see someone who is different. You just see that you can learn something, you can give something. So we are always open to getting new volunteers in case people want to, get to know what we are doing, and yeah.
I'll just add on to some of the other points with something distinctive that I've heard. Sometimes whenever I was meeting with community members, I would get the comment like, why would anyone want to come here? Kind of a fatalistic kind of view of their community. And I'll share a quick anecdote. I got to host a conference about 2 years ago on engaging international residents in the rural workforce. It was really fascinating. We held this up at Penn College in Lycoming County in Williamsport. Home of the Little League World Series, right? Our leadoff speaker was a gentleman from the U.S. Department of State, and his sole job was to facilitate visas for sports programs in the United States. Again, tied to Williamsport. It seemed like a really good idea. He made an observation I thought was really interesting. He said, what we need to remember is that a lot of folks who are coming to the United States on visa programs are not coming from major metropolitan areas in their home countries. Most often they're coming from small and rural towns in their home countries. And if given the opportunity, they would feel more at home in an environment like that. And so when we think about where a lot of our international residents end up in Pennsylvania, yeah, there's critical mass in urban areas, and that makes sense. But there could be these opportunities as well. So I think if we give local residents the opportunity to think that way, yeah, you have some really positive attributes. You should be proud of your community. This is a place that you're living. Other people would want to live there too. So let's think about that. Maybe there's a way of capitalizing on it.
I'd like to just give a round of applause to our panelists today. And one person who you will not see up in the front of the room, but who was really instrumental in pulling together today's program, was Matt Johnson. So I also want to thank him. Just a couple of announcements. As usual, a video from today's forum will be available next week. If you subscribe to our newsletter, it will come directly to you. One of the reasons we're proud to have community leaders and stakeholders like you in the room is that you will share this information with others who are not here in the room. So I suggest that you share those videos with them as well. If you're not a member of the Hourglass yet, I already mentioned, but there's information on your way out. You're more than welcome to become a member or connect with me if you're curious about what we do. Next month, you will not see me in the front of the room. I will be out of town, but we will have a presentation from EDC of Lancaster County. They presented at a community forum for us in September of 2024 as a part of a panel talking about outdoor recreation in Lancaster County. There's a follow-up and some exciting news that they want to share with you all, so that will be a great one to attend. Thank you all so much for being here, and have a great first Friday.